Well, Dan just took off. Let me wait a couple more minutes.
Oh, I'm still here.
Oh,
I just
Dan's
turned
still
my
there.
I just turned my camera off and it makes me disappear.
Okay, cool. Well, happy Monday. I think we can get started. This is the third episode of our Retail Fundamentals webinar that we wanted to do to prep people before they came to Buyers Club. So this coming Thursday, we're hosting our second Revelry Buyers Club, where we're connecting CAURD retailers to the brands, growers, and processors that we have started in New York. Today, who's joining me is Alana Frankel, chair of CANY Retail Committee. How's it going, Alana?
It's going well. Thank you for asking. Excited to be here.
Dan, who just disappeared, is the president or the executive director?
Executive director.
Sorry.
I'm still here.
And we're very excited to have Dave Vautrin. Did I pronounce that right, Dave?
Yeah, you bet.
Vautrin, operating partner for Union Square Travel Agency. He was someone I reached out to because he's been working with so many brands right now and really sharing knowledge about what's happening in New York real estate retail. And today we're doing the third part series, which is activating your brand. So we had Miri talk about brand selection previously. We had Jesse talk about onboarding the brand into the store once the PO is issued. And now that the product is in the store, Dave is going to talk about all of the important things about how you activate and how you start marketing within the store. So I will put myself on mute and turn my camera off and hand it over to you, Dave.
Great. Thank you very much. Pop this screen open. How does that look?
Looks great.
Looks great.
Okay, great. I never know. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to participate in this series. I got to enjoy Jesse's as well as Miri's presentation. So glad to be part of that and do the third part of the webinar. First, just a little bit on Union Square Travel Agency. Hopefully most of the participants have combined and got an opportunity to see our retail store. Union Square Travel Agency is a purpose-driven cannabis dispensary that redirects more than half of all proceeds to the non-for-profit, the DOE Fund. So New York Birth Company that believes in legalization of cannabis and that the cannabis industry should help repair the damage done by the war on drugs. So I've got quite a few topics here. So I'm gonna churn through this. Today we're going to talk about there's five different parts of this discussion. The premise behind the discussion is about activation and activating a brand. But the basis of all that is actually knowing the difference between a brand and a label. And so I thought it'd be super helpful just to start with brand fundamentals. In this first section here, the overarching statement is that brands are far greater than a label and a logo. So they are a combination of tangible and intangible elements, which encompass perception, reputation, personality, and identity. And this is really important. It is too often that myself and others, we get presented a bag of samples and a price sheet. And the supplier thinks that they have a brand and they don't. And so it's important that they understand that brands are built through, consistent messaging, positive customer experiences, effective marketing strategies, and then delivering on the promises. And then through this great brand work, you get to establish trust and loyalty, emotional connections with the customers. And that, of course, influences their PI or their purchase intent and builds relationships. So I would ask that, brands that come to us and would like to be part of the Union Square Travel Agency, we always like to ask, who is your target consumer? Now, this is a tricky question because many of them don't know who their target consumer is, or they might say all of the above. But that's often not the case. So there are generally some buckets of consumers, and it's the kind of curious consumer, cannabis enthusiast, the never smoker, the connoisseur, the value seeker, the fun seeker, and the medical patient. So once you understand who you're targeting, it's always best then to figure out how your unique selling propositions resonate with each of the current target consumer traits and attributes and formats. And each of those consumer groups have specific attributes and formats in which they prefer to enjoy cannabis. And I say current because your consumer may shift over time, but I think initially you've got an idea, you should have an idea on who your actual consumer is going to be. And then also on existing branded SKUs, how will your brand add any value to the existing menu of products? So we already have over 300 SKUs on our menu. So when somebody's presenting to a retailer, we ask, like, how will you not be cannibalistic? How will you help us grow a consumer type or category, or offer something and that makes our portfolio stronger? So those are some basics. And then in today's basic discussion, and because branding is pretty extensive, today's basic discussion is going to be on core strategies in the current New York market, right? So I like to spend a little bit of time talking about the product catalog, training and education, marketing, and the overall public message, and then portfolio management. So on the product catalog, a significant amount of cannabis purchases are purchased based on supplier provided information featured on the retailer's online menu. So why that's important, and we'll give you an example of Union Square Travel Agency. Currently, 22% of the revenue comes in before the consumer even walks into the dispensary. That leaves another 78% of the volume. Half of those customers actually don't even interact with the bud tender after their first order. So I would say that in many high volume locations, you will see a situation where the first moment of truth, the FMOT, in like consumer behavior language, is highly dependent on the menu, in which includes the packaging, descriptions, and photography. And so I wanted to spend time on these three elements because they're so super critical to the success. And most brands at this point, they don't put enough energy in it. And so they don't represent their brands well enough. And there's a huge opportunity for improvement here. So on the packaging, let's make sure that the packaging is in sync with the brand and the target consumer. Of course, knowing your target consumer is the first step there. And how does it compare to the competitive set? Initially we saw most gummies came in bags, and now the set is starting to shift and people are moving towards tins. We've seen this in other particular markets. Can you stay in a bag? You bet. But if you're looking for a premium positioning, you'll probably want to consider what the competitive set looks like on that front. Product descriptions. These are really important. And this is your opportunity to highlight features and notable characteristics. Use engaging descriptions and sensory language to evoke curiosity. Of course, make sure it's compliant. If you're selling a flower, this is a great opportunity to speak about lineage and effect leaning. Is it sativa? Is it indica, etc.? Terpenes, and maybe experiences a consumer may feel. On edibles, you'll start to see we're going to mandate that all brands and all edibles provide us full descriptions with ingredients and allergens, etc. So for edibles, provide full ingredient descriptions. Like I said, if there's an allergen, artificial color, then the consumer should know that. Photography. This is quite interesting because we get a whole array of photos, and it shouldn't be that difficult because we all have great cameras, even on our phones, and access to a photographer. So photography, both online and lifestyle. So we provide specs for our photos. And so that's on a separate sheet that we issue when we do onboarding. There's a whole onboarding package. So I would encourage all brands to follow the specs. That includes the contents. If the package is, if you've got a great product, a great picture of the package, but you don't have the product in front of it, we would suggest that you add the product in front of it when applicable. So, so the contents are critical, the background, the size of the photo, the lighting, the type of photo, all that is critical. And then at Union Square, we have a travel club and we push out communications to thousands of people on a weekly basis. And so we'd also be looking for some lifestyle photography and some other images and stuff. So spend some time on your photography and representing your brand on that front. Next, training and education. So training education of the brand fundamentals and product catalog is an essential way to connect with bud tenders. So first we talked about the brand fundamentals and then the product catalog. And now we've got to get the message out there, because when a customer does go to a bud tender, they are really seeking advice and counsel. So with the product knowledge and firsthand experience trying the product for the bud tenders can guide personalized recommendations and help consumers make informed decisions. So on a macro level, within a week of the launch, we're looking for some training. We do training at Union Square. Every dispensary should do some form of training. Our training is usually Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. We recommend a brand overview. Talk about your ethos and your origin story. Maybe it's your commitment to quality, your process, the why. Why should the bud tender believe in your product and what makes you extra special? With over 300 SKUs, it's really difficult for them. So you've got to really stand out and resonate with them. And each one of the brands have a story. And sometimes they forget. They just say, here's our brand, here's our price list, try it out. But those feelings go away. And then we end up with just confusion for the bud tender. So just try to make that connection. Product level training. So basically the format in which you're selling and the why, right? So if it's an edible, it's dosable, it's discreet, it's portable. So you want to support your format and your why. What makes each approved SKU special on the menu? So there may be other edibles or vapes or tinctures, etc., on the menu. So what makes that extra special? And I use the word approved because this is also important. One of the really frustrating things for a retailer is when a brand comes in and presents a product that's not approved. And so all you do is create confusion at the retail level. So we would ask that you follow the retailer's process and only present items that have been approved, and just stay laser focused with the bud tender and that training. So there are clearly lots of benefits to training and education, including connecting with the soul of the company, with the bud tender. And then frankly, they are just more confident when asked or suggesting products. It is sales 101. Bud tenders and salespeople, they need to know about the product, they need to be educated, and they need to try the product or experience the product when possible. So as far as collateral, we've seen a lot of great collateral from different brands in training. So just make sure you have some printed collateral, and it could be that origin story, it could be descriptions in every one of the products, it could be product positioning. The more the better, but the key is that the training needs to be interactive and engaging. So the interactive part is ask questions, and ask questions not to see if they're listening as much as to see if you're actually delivering the message in an engaging way in which they retained it. And then quizzes are a good way to test at the end and give away some prizes or some swag. That's a great way to kind of wrap up the training and the education. So, and then we've seen quite a few brands use laminated cards at the retail level, and that's used not only by the bud tenders behind the registers, but also by the consumers. So we leave them out on the counter, and the consumers can flip through that. And whether it's, again, if it's a vape pen or it's an edible or beverage, whatever have you. some consumers process information differently and they want to be informed differently. So it could be the laminated card, it could be all the touchscreens in our retail shop. It could actually be the bud tender or some other form of marketing or messaging that we do as an organization. So after we get through the training and education, and we've already closed the loop on brand fundamentals and product catalog, the marketing and the activation really needs to start to kick in here. So marketing and activation. So as the cannabis industry gets increasingly competitive, brands will need to stand out and to create awareness around its products, values, and its unique selling points. So the incumbents, the first round suppliers, some of them are doing really well, but others are just counting on hope, and they're not doing the hard work. They're not supporting their brands, and they really need to start implement some of the brand principles and fundamentals, as well as consider some of these marketing tactics. So why market? It builds brand and product awareness. It establishes trust and credibility between the brand and the consumer, and the brand and the bud tender, both through, directly or through third parties. It can be influencers. And then other benefits are it kind of builds trade, community, and consumer relationships. So I think that you want to build relationships with your peers, your other brands, your other peers, and other trade professionals. We're all in this together. And so you've seen me push out information statewide. We are within limits. We believe in some form of transparency and helping others, and I would encourage that too. So the marketing should connect across all levels there. Just a few examples, and there are a lot, and more will come. I think anyone that does business with us know that I came from the California cannabis business. I started in 2016. I crossed basically every channel from processing to cultivation to distribution, manufacturing, etc., including retail, of course. And so in California, the methods and tactics were far greater and accessible than they are here in New York currently. But I'm super optimistic about the New York market. And I think that we're going to see some really creative solutions that work within the parameters of New York, but also can help get the messaging out. So it's digital kind of baseline stuff, social media and website, really critical kind of starting point for whether a bud tender wants to go check it out or a consumer wants to check it out. And then having social media is one, and then making it engaging, of course, is the second part of that. Third party, some brands are on Weed Maps, some are not. There are rules around what you can do in tethering the two, but you can certainly be on there. Also third party, I mentioned earlier, the influencer engagements. Those can be pretty impactful as well. From a trade standpoint, industry events, the buyer show that's coming up, that's coming up this week. So I would, encourage all brands to go there. And there's many reasons you would go. The opportunity to meet a lot of these new prospective retailers. That's a fantastic opportunity, but also you have an opportunity to see other brands and work with other brands and get to know them and understand the competitive landscape, which we'll talk about next. And then media. If you have a great story, I actually did recently an interview with NPR, and it was regarding boomers and cannabis. And that was in connection to Senior Moment. Senior Moments, the brand, which does really well, has a specific target demographic. They connected with the writer or interviewer from NPR, and then consequently connected me to them. So hoping to see here in the next week or so a robust story of some sort with NPR, sharing the Senior Moments and the essence behind it, why it was created, and what role it plays in the marketplace. And so there's countless examples of that. So if you have a story, share it. and share it with us and collaborate with us. We have a fantastic PR team. If you've got a story you want to share, information you want to get out, we could potentially collaborate and get that out. And we've also done quite a few collabs on press releases when brands launch in the marketplace. You don't get as big of a punch on that, but it's just one more form and one more touch point in the marketplace. Tactical examples, obviously influencer featuring products, leverage geofencing. If you have just a few retailers or you're limited in where you're selling, you don't need to be inefficient about your marketing spend. You could just geofence, a zip code, an area, or a county, whatever have you. Collaborate again. You can collaborate with other brands. You've got to concentrate. You can collaborate with a rig. There's different things that you can do in the marketplace that would help tactically effectuate some of your marketing tactics. Announcing new products, dispensary launches, I just mentioned, push that on your social media. Every one of you should have a professional. I'm not trying to play that role. I'm just giving examples. And that's actually not my area of responsibility. We have a super competent guy who manages that team. His name is Jesse, and you know that if you're working with us. And then if there's an occasion or an event that you want to celebrate, that's another example of ways getting the brand out there and creating some marketing buzz. The key is when you're building a brand, right? There's always 4 stages. And stage 1 is awareness. Stage 2 is trial. Stage 3 is conversion. You're converting them from using or consuming a different product. And then stage 4 is loyalty. That's where you need to get. You need to get to that loyalty stage, and it's difficult. It's really difficult. Brands, there's a tendency to want to kind of sell on price. And if you sell on price, you will ultimately lose on price. And if you sell on THC, you will lose on THC because your next batch won't come out the same way, or somebody more sophisticated will learn how to sell around THC. There's, the market wouldn't be able to sell $500 bottles of wine if everybody just sold on alcohol. So you've got to build that, the brand fundamentals, the following, the relationship, the connection with consumers, and that will happen over time. So right now it's still early stage, and consumers are still learning. And so their go-to, for example, is THC. We need to coach them around that, and we are doing our very best at the retail level. But the brands need to do some of that work too, and need to talk about different approaches in connecting deeper consumer bonds. So beyond the marketing piece here, I'm going to roll into portfolio management. So you understand who your brand is. You've got a robust menu. You get some marketing tactics. But now, if we all have to manage our portfolio. So for portfolio management, initially, I was first thinking about sharing how we manage our portfolio. We are super disciplined at Union Square Travel Agency. We do category reviews. We have thresholds per category. For example, you won't survive on the menu if you don't sell more than 12 pre-rolls a day, or 8 edibles in a day, or 7 eighths in a day, or 6 vapes in a day, etc. So category management is really disciplined from our perspective. But I wanted to talk about it as a two-sided conversation. So portfolio management is a shared responsibility between the supply side of brands and the demand side of the dispensary. And it requires ongoing calibration and optimization. So I wanted to share some principles, some things that go through my mind, and probably other retailers as well. Cannabis-centric category management principles. Number 1, cannabis consumers are exploratory. It is unlike many other CPG markets. They want to keep trying different things, and so that's okay. So it's partially the responsibility of the retailer to continue to provide new products, as well as the brands. Data-driven assortment management is essential for both of us. we are very disciplined about, we take our data and we draw insights from them. And you all should be doing the same. And you can do that on your side through your own data, or you can do it through data which we provide you access to. And then why do we do portfolio optimization? In the end, it improves the customer's experience. What doesn't improve the customer experience is actually more options. And so we have to cap the number of SKUs on there. Too many SKUs actually creates confusion, delays the consumers, the amount of time it takes the consumer to make a purchase, and often they'll leave the basket not closed out. So if you understand the consumers like to explore, we all must be disciplined about data and extracting insights and to inform our decisions, and that portfolio optimization is really in the best interest of the experience. We are laser focused on customer experience. We're constantly monitoring our Google reviews and making sure that we're delivering on our promise, just like we ask you to create to deliver on your promises. Retailers need to do the same. Existing brands. So we have now 56 brands as of today. And so for existing brands, you should understand our performance expectations, like I had just shared. You should monitor your performance. If you do business with Union Square or quite a few of the others, you have access to headset. As a brand, you can see your on hand, you can see your inventory on hand, you can see your movement. You can actually even see your sales relative to quote unquote the other guys, as the report says. So I would encourage you to use our insights and use your own insights. And then if you have a underperformer, you need to nourish or discourage those, nourish or discontinue those underperformers. Don't let us do it. If you've got a slow mover and you are not figuring out a way to get it lifted. Now, some brands have gotten creative. They identify they have a slow mover and they'll provide additional training, or they will provide additional samples for the bud tenders. New items. So just understand that, the low-hanging fruits are all gone. The opportunity to come in there and drop 20 items in the menu is very difficult unless you've got an incredible proposition. And reality is, to do that, we must remove 20 items. So retailers must be much more discerning. So I encourage you to recommend your high potential SKUs, your hypos, and not necessarily all of them. That shows us that you're disciplined, and it is hard. You must choose between your children, and that is difficult. But you have to understand in a dispensary like one that's already up and running, their menu is pretty full. And so we need to be able to swap SKUs in and out, and it really needs to add value. And then also consider the retailer's consumers with your recommendations. So there are certain products that sell better in New York City and certainly in Manhattan. And I talked to a dispensary and a friend in Queens, and he has different revenue outputs. And upstate New York, when I chat with Binghamton, they have different performance and different demands. So just when you're making your recommendations, try to customize them to the actual retailer. As far as the competitive set goes, this is pretty important. Everything's moving such rapid change right now. So I would encourage brands to audit other brands' listings, photos, and their propositions online. Follow the other retailers and other retailers and other brands' online social media. Competitive set. I think that the buyer show is helpful because you can kind of see around the corner. You see what's coming. You see what's out in the particular marketplace. So for us, follow our travel club. We push out announcements on new products and different events, etc. So just get involved and be really, really informed. And then the last part here is anticipate iterations and embrace premiumization. So this is super important on many, many levels. I live this I watched this. I joined the California cannabis market pre-rec. And I just watched at the end, there was over 800 brands there. So there are more brands coming and there are more SKUs, and they're not just the national brands. There are legacy entrants that are just waiting on the side for the market to be more robust, so they can transition their business. And there are a lot of local businesses that just maybe had a slow start or doing like brand extensions. So expect more pressure on the brand side. I think it's pretty important that you kind of go into this eyes wide open on that front. Expect more ratioed products as far as the cannabinoids go, way beyond the THC. That is, adding CBD or any of the other cannabinoids, they don't radically change the cost, but they do change both the performance and the perception of the value. And then ingredients, you're going to see, I'm seeing it already now, cleaner ingredients, cleaner labels, better products, adaptogens, right? So I think that's something we all should you should anticipate as well when you're looking at your product portfolio. You got to be cautious not to go too deep, but you got to be cost effective to make sure you hit the right price. So just be smart about it. There's a lot of moving parts here. So I think that covers what I really wanted to chat about today, which was the brand fundamentals, your product catalog, training and education, marketing, and your public image, as well as the portfolio management as a kind of a two-sided piece. And the other comment, I guess, on the portfolio management side is we encourage all brands to get on headset because it changes the whole relationship from this binary buy-sell relationship where you're calling every week, how did I do? We can take that ambiguity out of the relationship, and now you can see the data. You can see what's moving. You can see if you're gaining share, you're losing share. You can see your days on hand. There's quite a bit of information. So now you can come to the retailer and say, retailer, I've identified this challenge. It just may be that your product has been put on pause. Well, it would be good if you knew that sooner than later. So again, I'd encourage you to use the headset data on that front. So that's all I have for now, but Lulu.
Oh, hi, it's Alana. I'm here.
Oh, great.
Hi, yeah, I'm here for the Q&A.
Super, great.
I'm here for the Q&A. So I have a bunch of questions. That was an incredible presentation, and thank you. But I want to just first ask the question here that's in the chat. Talking about ingredients and descriptions on the products.
Mm-hmm.
They have banned artificial flavors here in New York for nicotine vapes cartridges. Do you think they will carry that over to THC cartridges in time, especially if they start listing product ingredients for consumers, like you mentioned? Yeah,
so we're going to insist on it because we think that the customers should know. They should know if there's an artificial color or not. And if somebody uses beet juice instead of red dye, then there's an extra cost for that. And so we expect the consumers to pay more. We should explain it why. Some consumers don't mind artificial colors and artificial flavors. It's their choice. So do I think it'll carry over? I think it's really important from a retailer's perspective is to just get the information out to the consumer. We're already under a microscope in the cannabis industry. And so more transparency here, the better.
Great, thank you. I want to just go back to talking about photography, because I really want to emphasize what's out there now online and on retail sites and in general is not selling anybody's brand. I mean, there are some incredible photographers here in New York who can snap a photo of flower, whatever it is, your product, so that it sells. And I think that, yes, storytelling is important, collaboration, marketing, all of that. But what a lot of people are looking for and looking at are the qualities of the product, and especially in flower. So can you talk a little bit about, again, the importance of the visual representation of your brand and specifically your product?
Sure. Well, actually, we have written up photography and description guidelines. So we have onboarding guidelines. And we have photography and description guidelines, which we'll be pushing out next week. Right now for us and for a lot of retailers, it kind of looks like a hockey game. When you look at the images, some are small, some are big, some have black or dark backgrounds, some have logos in the background. It needs to be more uniform for the consumer experience and for the benefit. You know, in the beginning, the regs were a little confusing whether or not product packaging images should have or can have pictures of the actual product. There's no confusion. I've cleared this with the OCM. So if you're going to present a product for our menu, which all this needs to happen before intake, we'll give you specific instructions on the product photography, the background, the size of the file, etc. But it needs to always have a picture of the product in it when applicable.
Amazing. And that also will, I just want to also emphasize too, you talked a little bit about lifestyle images, and especially if you're marketing to a very specific group, the kind of curious, the seniors, whoever, the lifestyle imagery has to match that messaging.
Yeah, sure does.
Ooh, can I make a quick plug? If you go to cannabismediacouncil.com, which Alana is also part of, we just announced and put up our 2023 full spectrum guidelines for advertising. And that was a collaborative effort across multiple people in different markets. So just piggybacking on what you said, Alana, participants, if you're interested in looking at that, just go to cannabismediacouncil.com.
Lulu, always connecting the dots. I love that about you. Thank you. There's a question in the chat here about accessing the headset data. Is that something that you work with brands to connect them with, or how does that work?
Yeah, so for starters, we encourage every brand that's working with us to get on to headset. In fact, if they don't, well, they do, because we tell them how disappointed we are, because it's free. Actually, right now New York is an emerging market, and so brands will get the first, I think it's up to the first 15 retailers, which is the entire market. They get at no charge to them. So it's got to be 15 retailers in which they're doing business with. So what happens is we'll send a note. I'll send a note to headset, and I'll authorize a retailer. I'll connect them. I'll authorize a brand, and the brand will connect with headset. They'll go through an onboarding process, sign a confidentiality agreement, and then they will have access within 48 hours or so.
Beautiful. That answers that question. Thank you to the person who asked it. What's missing from your shelves these days? Like, what do you feel like is missing? Like, what brands, what type of consumer that you're seeing coming into the store, the dispensary, is not being met?
So we have this discussion every week when we do a category review. And so we're excited. There are some nice significant brands that are coming to the market currently. Beyond the brands that are existing in the portfolio, there's another 117 on my list. Not all of them are ready to go to market. So, but there's quite a few coming around the corner. As far as what's missing, I think what we're going to start to see are just different formats and evolutions of products, and we'll start to see more chocolates. We're going to start to see more mints. We're going to start to see an emergence of additional beverages. Although I'm super pleased with the beverages I have in place right now. Heirloom, for example, is doing exceptionally well at our particular store. We are expecting some mints from Bristol, so that'll be coming on soon. We are launching a 3-ounce bag. So that'll be kind of a big deal. We launched the 1-ounce. I walked around and went to all these illicit shops, and we are surrounded by them. And I saw the illicit shops were all selling 1/2 ounces for $100. So then I actually went to one of my supply partners, who is a top performer, Hudson Cannabis, and together we created the 1-ounce bag of $200, and it has done really well. We've expanded that to multiple SKUs, as well as now pushing up to a 3-ounce bag. So, for New York market, this market is super, really lucky to have version 1.0 is so far advanced here in New York than it was in California for many years ago. So our product mix is good. The products are evolving, ingredients evolving, packaging is evolving. Normal emerging to market trends would be pre-rolls, go from pre-rolls to infused pre-rolls. So there's a whole series of emerging trends, but I think we've got our thumb on the pulse of it right now. And hats off to the New York supply chain, because there are just so many great people working tirelessly on launching a bunch of fantastic products that are we're not missing anything. I mean, it's coming. It's whatever's not on my shelf, it's on its way.
Good to hear. I love that.
Mhm.
I also am really interested, and I know that you're very data driven, but I'm loving this sort of, and it's very unusual in the cannabis industry to be so data driven. We haven't been that good at it in the past for obvious reasons, or it hasn't been, maybe we've been good at it, just hasn't been a priority and it hasn't been formalized. But this combination of what I think is unique about your perspective is that there's a combination of data and emotional marketing. So this combination, I think, is probably your sweet spot, your special sauce, making sure that all of the collateral, all of the marketing, all the emotional, all the CPG, all of the traditional brand storytelling is there in the marketing. But really, the wind beneath the wings is this data, is this sort of, headset data that's coming in constantly.
Mhm.
And that no matter what this, what happens in the ethos, numbers don't lie.
Yep.
And that's an interesting combination. Do you encourage that constantly?
Yeah, I think that brands and retailers, they must be data driven. I mean, we are dialing it down now. I soon will be able to tell you, I'll soon be able to report back to a brand what time of day their products are purchased, how many customers have purchased it multiple times. See, the first sale doesn't mean so much for me, right? It's the reorders. It's when the consumer votes with their dollar the second time, then we've got a customer and we have a following. So just kind of pairing up, better understanding when they buy certain products, what products they pair with other products.
And then I guess that'll also help with what time of day to come in to do education or do, be around to answer questions. If there's a, certain time period, you can sort of start to sync up all the other marketing efforts.
Yeah, that's right. Just, there's a day part consideration as well. But, we talked about earlier, we had a conversation, you and I offline, because I'm fortunate to be part of your committee. But we talked about the different consumer types, because data is relevant to that too. So for example, the kind of curious, you're like, well, what does that even mean? Right? That's kind of okay, we've got ourselves a demographic, but not sure what that actually means. The deeper conversation is that this particular consumer has specific traits, they're interested in mind and body wellness. They're new, but they might be seeking stress relief or ways to lead a better life, but they want a safe and positive first experience. So sometimes they're nervous, they're intimidated, right? So just understanding who that consumer is, these are their traits, and they have specific attributes too. the kind of curious consumer wants a controlled dosing. They want packaging that clearly communicates what to expect. They have specific formats they like. For example, kind of curious, they like edibles, they like vapes, and they like a product we don't have, but should be coming soon, tea, as well as topicals. That's that particular consumer. And then if you flip, like, for example, you go to the connoisseur, they want premium elevated experience. They know a lot about, they enjoy knowing a lot about like certain categories like cannabis or craft beer or bourbon. They love to share their knowledge with friends, right? So they want beautiful flower, they want purity, they want like unique genetics and terpene profiles and special forms and diamonds, etc. So for them, they want flower and concentrates. Just understanding who these consumers are so that we can properly market to them to meet their needs.
Beautiful. Okay, I'm hoping that the question of what type of edibles that you would like to see has been answered. I think you were pretty clear on there's mints coming, tea, more chocolates. The next question we have here is, what about indoor? Anything on when that's coming?
Some of it already exists, and so it's in the marketplace, and there's kind of quite a bit of hybrid growing going on already. Whether it's indoor, it's hoop house, it's in a greenhouse, but there's no lights, etc. So indoor is coming, it's underway. There's some really clever techniques. In California, I've seen some of the like world-class cannabis facilities out there. And I have, over the last few weeks here, I've been to 9 facilities, and I have been really impressed with what I have seen out there. And so, just reacting to the New York environment, as far as the cultivators going, using heat in the floor, whether they're putting the plants on the floor, on tables, etc., different ventilation systems. So I've been pretty impressed, but as far as indoor goes, there's some indoor already on the marketplace.
Beautiful. If anybody has any other questions, please feel free to just put them right in the chat. We have a few more minutes. Yeah, go
Dave, are you seeing any, we talk a lot about like purchasing or, swaying by purchasing based on kind of like what you believe in. Have you been seeing any brands come out that like BIPOC brands or veteran owned brands or, like queer brands in the market as of yet?
We've seen it. I don't know that there's any sort of, I haven't seen it materially increase the purchase intent of consumers. So it's more of it's a nice to have, but we're not seeing it increase the PI. Like consumers are not saying, like, for example, Flamer. We like it. The product actually, we first tested it. We had some feedback. They modified it. They came back with a materially better product and approach, and they're doing okay, and we like it, and we like having it on the menu. But I don't see like significant amount of volume being driven because they're gay, to answer your question. I don't know did I answer that question properly?
Yeah, I'm also wondering like the ratio that you're seeing of like, the underrepresented, not in terms of sales, but have you been seeing any brands come up, like any product?
No, a couple BIPOC brands, really for us, Flower House has been a driver on the BIPOC. We are waiting. I have, there's on my list as a half a dozen BIPOC brands, but I haven't seen any that have come through. And I would say that it is important to us, but I cannot approach these brands with a blind eye, right? They have to go through the criteria. They have to have brand strategies. They have to have proper portfolio pricing and approach. Like the days of walking in with a bag of weed and a price list and us writing a PO are over. It's just so there's we're very interested and expanding. We haven't seen huge demand or impact on purchase intent. But again, all brands would need to go through a very similar criteria.
We have a question here about education. What do you think is lacking in terms of education, and what do you see customers are, liking, being educated? How does that work?
Yeah, two things on that. As far as education goes, if the FMOT, right, the first moment of truth for consumers might be that digital portal, I would love to see more romance, more information provided by the brands. So if a customer is scrolling, they can read it and they can get engaged with the subject and the product. I'd like to see a world where we have multiple photos, up online, from an education standpoint, and maybe little videos, not dissimilar to what we might experience, when you go to Amazon. So I think that our systems today are pretty relatively antiquated relative to what customers' expectations are. From a brand standpoint, I see this year having a portal in which brands will load into, and bud tenders will basically go through there, be educated virtually or alongside, and then have to test out. So they will become a brand expert, a certified bud tender, on X, Y, or Z brand. So two things on training. One is more information to the consumer, more transparency to the consumer, and then more training for the bud tenders by way of the brand.
And do you think that the concept of education, you talk a lot about the concept of education falling on the brand, especially, because it'll be specific to what the brand is offering, but the sort of more, broader kind of education of, you inhale, and especially for the CANY curious and the newbies, you inhale and you'll get a faster onset than if you have an edible, or, if there's a larger conversation about education, especially, like I said, for this CANY curious, and to sort of make them feel more comfortable walking in the door, having a little bit of knowledge, even the language, the lingo, understanding, because a lot of it is, you walk in and, you might know THC and CBD, but then they're throwing, CBN and CBG and THC A, V, A, B, C, D. And I mean, there's tons of it. And so, is there an opportunity for the first line of education to be from you guys in a broader sense, or do you still think that brands need to, focus on that as well?
Yeah, I've been really impressed with our bud tenders. They can identify when somebody's a first timer, and they really spend a lot of time with them. There's you may recall New York Times ran a Sunday edition on our training program. So our training program is pretty extensive, and obviously getting that information from the bud tenders' brains over to the consumers is also a critical step. I think that we'll hopefully see some more work from third parties. I know Lulu has a group that's actually pushed some work out on this when it comes to seniors and cannabis. So I think maybe some in-store flyers and some communication on that. Maybe we could even use our travel club for some of that education. That's a decision outside of my area of responsibility, but I'd like to see that, but I think it'll come in a few different formats.
Gotcha. Great. I think those were all of my questions. We have like 3 minutes left. I'm wondering if there's any other questions out there, anything we haven't covered, anything you forgot to say. I mean, I can't.
I've got one.
Oh, there you go.
What not to do? Like, what are some things that people like brands have done that have, have really irked you or caused confusion, or they've just been like a put off?
Yeah. I appreciate, because I just toured a bunch of farms, right? So I appreciate how far people drive. And I went up to Syracuse, I guess last week or so, but But driving by the dispensary and dropping off a bag of weed, like those days, you can't do that. Like, I know, like, anybody that wants to send an email to supply@Union Square Travel Agency, and you will get, I will communicate with you eventually, or, well, actually, I'd be the primary point. But dropping off samples, and then, like, we've had suppliers come in and be angry. Why can't somebody talk to me right now? Well, we have built a pretty extensive bench of people in our organization, and we have an office offsite nearby. Not everybody's on site. When at the retail store, we execute like a machine, and everyone there are operators. And so we have various functions that are that are connected, but maybe 4 blocks away. So don't show up and drop off samples and price lists unless it's already coordinated. One, because you want to make sure it gets to us, because we have a really extensive testing program. So you get us samples, not one. You end up getting us 10 samples of a particular SKU. It goes through a testing team, and the budtenders don't get their next round of samples until they complete a Google sheet, and that's all posted, and I can review the feedback with Mike, who runs our retail operations. So there's a process. Everything we do is about people, processes, and systems. So when you get in the way of our process, that's irritating. Now they don't know any better. So if this is my platform, then my ask is send us an email, coordinate drop off samples. But when you drop off samples, it needs to come with a go-to-market plan. Again, it's just like, we don't put products into real testing until we know it's a viable product. And having products and a price list without a marketing plan, without a strategy, without a social media, without budtender training in place, budtender training, without having a viable proposition, without having unique selling propositions, we don't need to try your product. We're not going to bring it in, and it's never going to survive. And so to win in this marketplace, it takes more than just a great product. It's the whole package. It is going full circle. It's about presenting and building a brand so you can build long-term, endearing relationships with consumers.
I couldn't ask for a better way to end. That was a great final word. Thank you. That was amazing.
Yeah, I'll be at the buyer show. So, I look forward to meeting anybody that would like to get together with us now that you understand our expectations and what winning looks like at Union Square Travel Agency. So I appreciate the opportunity and, to chat here today also.
Amazing. Thank you all. Thank you very much for your time. And we'll see you all later this week.
Great.